Hello, today I want to talk about when I used to be asked, how was Japan? And I couldn't answer, and how that felt in that experience. And I'm hoping that maybe I can actually start to answer that question now at this point in my life, which hasn't been answered so far. When I was young, and most of my life until the last 6 years or so, I couldn't express myself using my voice, and it's part of verbal dyspraxia, as well as other factors. So I didn't have thoughts in my head, and I couldn't connect my experience with my speaking so that I could actually explain things or tell a story. I could say words, although I did have difficulty getting certain words out of my mouth or in a certain, to be clear enough. But I couldn't get more than a few words at once, so that's one of the reasons, because I could get some words and basically make a sentence and say it sometimes. That's one of the reasons that it wasn't detected that I had any trouble with my voice. And then I think it was probably put down to misunderstandings about me. People just assuming that I was very quiet, reserved, introverted. And I'm not actually any of those three things. But I couldn't explain and I couldn't express myself, and I'm just starting to do it these last few years. And by the time I was about 17, 18, things had got really bad for me, and I wasn't able to participate in my daily life much anymore, and a number of things had happened, and I'd ended up just being sort of feeling poorly every day and not being able to go to school anymore either. And my mum, who has always been really empowering in enabling me to enjoy my passions and be able to study things that I'm interested in or participate in activities that I'm interested in. I'm so grateful for that, and my dad that enabled that as well. He's always been a very good provider, and we've never gone without for physical needs and so on. So she noticed I was interested in languages, and one of the languages I was interested in was Japanese. So when I was about 14 or 15 or so, I don't know exactly, she'd bought me this sort of just pack, learn Japanese or teach yourself Japanese. It was a BBC version of it with tapes, the cassettes you used to get, and a book, and I just started listening to it, and because I learn by listening, it was a really amazing introduction to the language, and I started to get an idea of the language and how it sounds. And then when I was going through this difficult time, my mum was in an interesting transition of her life, because she'd actually gone to college after having worked at home for many years. And she was doing a journalism course, and she was doing really excellently with this course. And then she was just going through the library in her college and saw a sign on the wall advertising Youth for Understanding, and it was a programme to go to Japan, and it was for my age group. So she told me about it and said, "Oh, is that something you'd be interested in?" And I said, "Yeah." So I ended up applying for it and going to Japan when I was 18 years old. And when I was there, it was just such a gift to be able to do that, just to escape from my whole existence, my whole experience that I was having, which was not going well. There wasn't really much going for me. And thank goodness that I had this chance to just sort of start afresh and just be in a completely different environment. So I actually went off to Japan, and I stayed there for nearly 10 months. and I studied Japanese when I was there. At the beginning, not so actively. For someone like me, I learn by absorbing a language anyways, which is what we do when we're a baby and we're learning our own native language. And I was doing that with Japanese, and then eventually at some point I realised that I could actively study. That hadn't occurred to me before. And started to regret. And at that point I also had a chance to speak with somebody on a daily basis, which before that I hadn't really had as much opportunity to do that, and that was what I needed to be able to really learn it. Like, just that I need to communicate, they need to communicate, so there was somebody in the house that was doing that with me so I could learn. Maybe I can tell all these stories in another video, because it is really amazing. But when I got back after all this time, I came back into high school in England, and then anybody I saw, my year group had sort of moved on because they'd gone to, I think they might have started uni or something by then, like the year before, because I was like delayed a year by doing this separate experience in between completing my AS, we used to call it, and then I was going to come back and do the A-levels just a year later, which I did. But whenever I saw anyone from my year group, who I was so blessed to have a really amazing group of people in my year group, even though I couldn't necessarily have a lot of deep friendships because I couldn't talk. I appreciated a lot of people who were around me at that time. And then sometimes whenever they saw me, then they got surprised because they found out, oh, she's back, sort of thing, and then came up to me and said, how was Japan? And I couldn't say anything. I just couldn't say anything. I just couldn't say good or great or terrible or mixed or this happened or, you know, give any kind of story or anything because of my issues with my dyspraxia and my voice. It was so crushing that I'd had all this kind of like, because when I was in Japan, even though I was disconnected from the experience, I was having experiences in a different way and at a certain level, but there was no way of sort of like recalling them and sharing them. It was like a whole ocean worth of things and experiences and stuff that I'd been through, and I couldn't sort of like reach the shore to be able to sort of like get a bucket of water out of there and share that part of that story and say, look, this is part of it, this was part of it. It's really, and it was sort of isolating to me because I had people coming up to me wanting to ask me, and I just felt like such a failure that I couldn't even think of anything to say about it because I just don't have thoughts coming up into here. There was no way of connecting with all the people that I'd come back into or anyone around me about all the things, all the people who'd helped me and the friends that I have over there, the people that I love who took care of me. I feel like I was doing such a disservice to everybody who helped me when I was there because it made me feel like I was being ungrateful to them by not being able to credit them with all the good experiences they'd helped me to have and all the places that I'd been taken to and all of the things I'd been able to access. So that was the question. How was Japan? And a little bit of explanation why I couldn't answer that question, and thank you to everyone that asked me. And maybe bit by bit I can start to answer it. Oh, and I just before I started my video, I just grabbed a couple of things which were like precious to me from that time. I had this bow, which is a hair bow made for me by one of my classmates in Japan in the sewing class. So that's definitely going to have to be another video story, because a dyspraxic in a sewing class making a yukata, it took me a long time. That was something she gave me to match the yukata. And then this was a really amazing gift I had from my first host family. They'd given me a nickname in Japanese called Suzu, and then they had my name made in a stamp. It's so touching. And then when I was leaving, my class gave me a present, which is another meaning of the word Suzu is bell, and they gave me this. And I also have this towel, which was a present from Ai-chan. She was one of my amazing sort of friends or mother figures when I was there. So there we go. Thank you.